Works. It is now 5:30 and we do have a quorum present. So I will call this meeting of the Madison Plan Commission of November 27th to order. First, we will hear from our technical facilitator.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. We're going to cover a few basic items before beginning. If you lose your connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. To members and city staff, members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions. Staff, use raise hand when you are asked a question. The chair will do the best to call committee members in the order in which their hands are raised. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After all registrants speak, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with a commission, please send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jesse. I don't believe we have any public comment. Is that correct, Heather? Okay. Then moving on to communications, disclosures, and recusals. Members of the body should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Are there any disclosures? Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. For agenda item 5, the Bishop O'Connor Center, I worked for Gorman and Company when they developed that project. I did not work on that project, and it will not impact my decision.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Shepard.
Yeah, item number 2, it involved the Obrick Botanical Garden, and I'm on the executive board with Obrick, but I don't think there'll be any conflicts there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any others, disclosures or recusals? Thank you. Seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to the minutes of November 13th, 2023. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing no raised hands, is there a motion to approve? Moved by Commissioner Shepard, seconded by Alder Field. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Schedule of upcoming meetings. We have a regular meeting on Monday. That doesn't. Yes, okay, on Monday, December 11th, and then one on January 8th and 22nd in 2024. Those are both at 5:30, and then we have a special meeting on December 7th. That's a Thursday, and that one will be at 5 o'clock in room 354 of the City County Building. Next, we'll go to the consent agenda, which has changed a little bit from what we earlier thought. The first item On the consent agenda is agenda item 48639, Legistar number, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances entitled City Boundaries, being part of the chapter entitled Alder District and Ward. Annexing to the first Alder District, the property located in the town of Verona on the south side of Midtown Road, as described in the agenda item, and assigning a temporary zoning classification of temporary agricultural district. Next is agenda item 7, Legistar 80434, located at 1302 Chandler Street, Alder District 13, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family residence. Agenda item 8, Legistar 80631, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 201 through 301 South Park Street from Planned Development District to Regional Mixed Use District, and creating sections of the Madison General Ordinance to change the zoning of property located on Braxton Place from traditional residential urban 1 district to traditional residential urban 2 district and to traditional residential urban 2 district. Next item is agenda item 9, Legistar 80635, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 4702 through 4724 Trade Winds Parkway from Industrial Limited District to Suburban Employment District, located in Alder District 16. And also agenda item 10 through 12, which are the same property. Legistar 80224, located at 421 South Yellowstone Drive, District 19, consideration of demolition permit to demolish a 2-story office building. Agenda item 11, Legistar 80632, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinance to change the zoning of the property at that location from Suburban Employment District to Traditional Residential Urban 2 District. And agenda item 12, located at 80225, same location, consideration of a conditional use in the proposed Traditional Residential Urban 2 District for a multifamily dwelling with greater than 60 units to allow construction of a 5-story, approximately 83-unit apartment building. And then also agenda items 13 and 14, which are at the same location. Agenda item 13, Legistar 80636, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 4404 Hepker Road from Agricultural District to Neighborhood Mixed Use District and to Traditional Residential Urban 1 District, located in Alder District 17. Also, agenda item 14, located at 80236, approving the preliminary plat of Pumpkin Hollow and the final plat of Pumpkin Hollow Phase 1 on land addressed as 4404 Hepker Road. Agenda item 17 and 18, which are related. Agenda item 17, located which is Legistar 80638, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 8603 through 8901 Femwright Drive and 7501 through 7525 Ludds Lane from temporary agricultural district to agricultural district and to suburban employment district, located in Alder District 16. Agenda item 18, Legistar 80235, approving a certified survey map of property owned by the County of Dane, located at 8603 through 8901 Femwright Drive. And also agenda item 19, Legistar 8 located at 5632 Lake Mendota Drive, consideration of a demolition permit to demolish a single-family home located in Alder District 19.
Chair Zellers?
Yes.
My apologies. I'm unable to raise my hand for some reason. We just did get a registrant for item 20 confirming that they would rather not speak if it can remain on consent.
Oh, okay. Then I will read that one in also. Agenda item 20, Legistar 80429, located at 5632 Lake Mendota Drive, consideration of a conditional use to allow a new single-family residence to be constructed on a lakefront property. Thank you, Heather, for bringing that up. Are there any commissioners who would like to see any of those removed from the consent agenda? I don't see any raised hands, so I'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Commissioner Shepherd, seconded by Alder Field. And I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on then to agenda item 2, Legistar 80662, amending section 1603 of the Madison General Ordinance related to transportation demand management to clarify transportation demand management procedures, including broadening applicability. And we do have staff member Trent Schultz here to speak. And I did ask him to specifically focus on why we would want to exempt city-owned property. Sometimes people get a little prickly about us passing ordinances applying to the general public, but not applying to the city of Madison. So I wanted Trent to particularly focus on commenting about that. But if commissioners have questions about any of the rest of it, of course, feel free to ask those. So I will turn to Trent.
Thanks, Chair Zellers. So it seems like probably be best to focus solely on the city-owned exemption. So I'll go ahead and do that. Currently, within the TDM ordinance, public safety facilities are specifically called out as an exempted use, and public safety facilities as a use is pretty broad. It would include police stations, fire stations, the Fleet Services building on Nakusa Trail, as well as the recently approved Parks building on Lakeside. So based on that exemption and considering other amendments, we as staff are really looking to Plan Commission and Transportation Commission to get a little bit more guidance on whether this should be broadened to include all city property and potentially other government property, whether that be county, state, or federally owned. And considering some of the trade-offs, and as Liddell was mentioning, if we're taking out some properties and uses from the TDM ordinance that are publicly owned, is that fair to private development? So I don't know, Chair Zellers, if you'd want me to go over some of the pros and cons of each, whether having a wholly city-owned exemption or not, and some of the cons to leave it as it is, strictly with public safety facilities exemption as currently in the code.
I'm looking to Plan Commission members. Would you like to see Trent go through the pros and cons of including all? Yes. Okay. Please go ahead, Trent.
Yeah. So I would say, including the wholly city-owned exemption could reduce city versus city conflict, where the needs and desires of one agency would be put up against our TDM ordinance, and then having that exemption could also reduce the reviews of city projects that could already meet TDM requirements. For example, 5 points is awarded to be for projects within a quarter mile of high frequency transit, 7 TDM points for providing complimentary transit passes, which is something that the city already does, and then points for dedicated bike parking and teleworking opportunities. So for new city projects, a lot of TDM points would be built in already based on how the city operates. So it would reduce some of those added reviews that slow down project timelines. Another thing is, by having that exemption, it would be evenly placed on different city properties and uses, which is not something that's currently addressed in the ordinance. So an example of that, tying back to the public safety use, is that fleet services, which has a significant amount of parking, they don't need to be reviewed through the TDM ordinance, but a new library wouldn't actually be part of TDM at all, because within the zoning code, the parking minimum for library uses is 0. So the points that are established for a library use in specific would actually not be applicable, because the parking counts compared to the parking minimums required would not be divisible by 0. So I think there's that library use as an example, or new office space that the city owns that would currently need to provide a TDM, but any public safety use would not need to do anything with TDM. They'd be exempt. So I think that's one hole that shows that the ordinance isn't applied evenly right now, and having a wholly city-owned exemption would promote more fairness across city agencies. And moving on to the cons, I'd say the reduced applicability to city projects could definitely lessen some considerations for TDM, trying to encourage less parking on site and more multimodal amenities, which I, as the TDM coordinator, am definitely supportive of. But it could be a con of not including the city-owned exemption. Another is tying back to Liddell's point, and is focusing on, is the city making itself or making it easier on itself compared to private development. So I think those are some of the considerations that I have definitely considered, and would like plan commissioners' input on the decision to exempt city property.
Are there any questions by any commissioners, either on the city exemption or anything else? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Trent, thanks for the information. Just a question. I saw that the example of the Lake Street garage redevelopment as being an example of something that's currently not exempted and is not proposed for exemption because it's not wholly city owned. So could there be let's say some office building that, let's say a new CCB that's maybe perhaps jointly owned by the city and county, would that be exempt in the current formulation?
The proposed or the current ordinance as it stands?
The proposed ordinance.
So I think, the CCB, no, since it's jointly county owned, and that is something that Assistant City Attorney Eric Finch and I have discussed, and we would really like guidance on some of that to account for the different levels of government. And we do realize that a lot of, property that is publicly owned could be, pretty complicated in some of the ownership. So I think to start, we definitely, wanted to focus it on wholly city-owned property, but are open to, other considerations.
Okay, sorry. And one more question. Let's say there's a large new CDA owned housing redevelopment. Is that owned by the city or is it owned by CDA?
I would defer to Eric on that. I'm not exactly sure if he can answer that, but
Eric has his hand up, so maybe he could respond to that.
Yeah, those are very, very astute questions. And I guess for me to answer this, I'm going to take a step back just in terms of...
Eric, do you want to just introduce yourself? I'm not sure that people on the commission have met you before.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Eric Finch. I'm an assistant city attorney. I started in July, and I focus on transportation issues in the city. And my pronouns are he, him. They is also just fine. And for anybody with visual impairment, I'm a bald white guy. So just to kind of back up a tiny bit with sort of what's going on with the TDM ordinance. So this ordinance, as many of you know, and I'm sorry, some of this may be repeat information. This ordinance was passed basically a year ago, last December 15th, went into effect this June 15th, and within a couple months of it going into effect, Trent, who is the program coordinator, found some problems with the ordinance, namely that it doesn't cover a lot of uses that nominally it should, right? We had two exemption sections within the ordinance as it was passed, and this sort of came from before my time with the city and before Trent was in this role with the city, and we kind of looked through that and we realized, okay, we think that sort of the way that this used zoning language ultimately resulted in some uses being missed. So we included that blanket language and have basically tried to include uses so that this ordinance would be comprehensive. It's kind of the idea of it with transportation demand and management. It should evenly apply to everybody in the city because it really is about regulating the amount of traffic that goes in and out. It used to be that we just required a certain number of parking spaces with new buildings, but now we realize that the problem with that is that just kind of leads to more and more and more single occupancy vehicles, which runs counter to so many city programs and goals. So really what we wanted to do is we realized that from the get-go, we're missing some uses, and that would create a vulnerability for the city that a clever developer or somebody could basically get something done within the city by finding some use that wasn't contemplated. Things like community centers, but there were others, and so we've really tried to address that. We didn't. The TDM, because it's a new ordinance, will be getting reviewed basically when it's a year old. So that would be next summer, most likely. And there will be additional policy to kind of look at and review and consider how things are working. Are our thresholds correct? We can look at what other cities are doing. We can look at what's working. But really, this was a change that we just want to get this off the ground. Now, getting back to that government exemption, we didn't have a government exemption just to the same extent in the original ordinance. And everything we've done in terms of a change is really just trying to make the original ordinance work as intended. This is sort of the one add-on to that. But I think as Trent spoke about, the public safety exemption is an exemption that already would have covered quite a few building uses, some that might be unexpected, so sort of unevenly in surprising ways apply to various city programs. And also some uses that would be governmental uses are not included in the original statute. So actually, the new exemption would not be a change. It would actually keep those exempted, but some of those aren't mentioned in the statute. So essentially, we're trying to, make this as reasonably close to, what was contemplated a year ago, and just make it legally function how it's supposed to. But we've sort of said with this government exemption, as I think of it, we wrote it as wholly city owned because there was a question of, there are, and this gets to Commissioner Heck's question, the different types of ownership agreements that are out there. If there's something with Public Works or with the Development Authority where the city maybe owns something or is leasing something for a set term, or owns something, but then the developer over a certain number of years will purchase, or is doing something joint, whether that's with the county, whether that's with other governmental agencies, or quasi-governmental agencies like the Monona Terrace. So I think we generally would say that we do want to exempt wholly city-owned property. And then in terms of other governmental and quasi-governmental institutions, we would be looking for feedback from the Plan Commission on that. I've been out either sick or with sick kids much of the last 2 weeks. So I haven't had the time to do some of the legal research I had hoped, but I'm kind of expecting that as I look into it, there will, for example, be federal uses that we simply can't include. So it would probably make sense to just go ahead and exempt those as well. State level uses, and then there's a question of what we want to do with the county, and then things that are partially privately owned or public-private partnerships. There's a question of how we want to treat those. So my rough recommendation, and I'm not a policymaker. I'm just here to advise policymakers. Is that it probably makes sense to exempt, wholly city-owned property, and then in terms of other governmental agencies, it might make sense to do exempt other wholly governmentally owned pieces of land, and then in terms of some of these public-private partnerships, it may be that we want to have the default be that the TDM rules do apply to things that are have a private interest involved with them. But perhaps we allow the city to exempt some of those in its discretion through resolution. And so I think that's kind of where we would be. So I don't know how to put that into a motion. If someone wants me to put that into an exact motion, I could, but I hope that sort of facilitates some discussion on this point.
Thank you very much, Eric.
I'll leave it there.
And just as a general observation, and maybe other commissioners who were on the Plan Commission when we went through this, my recollection was that we did talk about that at one time, including or not including other city property, and we decided not to. But my memory could be faulty, so if anybody else has any recollection, that would be great too. Are there any follow-up questions, Commissioner Heck?
Not at this time, thanks.
Any other questions of either? Okay, Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Going back to the discussion of wholly city-owned and other governmental entities, just to clarify, what is before us is just for wholly city-owned currently. There was a comment about maybe having to include state-owned properties, for example, and I would definitely need to consider that further, just thinking of, development of a new state office building or something like that, and that would certainly in our downtown area should be, in my opinion, subject to TDM. So I just want to clarify what's before us today.
That's my understanding. Please correct us if we're wrong, Trent or Eric, that it's just wholly city-owned, not state or federal.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
what's
okay.
before
Thank
the before the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any Commissioner McCahill?
Thank you. As I'm rereading the staff report, I think I'm confusing myself a little bit. So the examples that are listed there, including the fleet services building and the BRT terminal, et cetera, it sounds like none of TDM was not required for any of those as it exists now. So I'm not entirely clear what this is fixing other than the things you mentioned, Trent, just like sort of limiting inter-department conflicts and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's one in there for a proposal north of the Garver feed mill that I believe Parks is in the planning phase for, and that if the majority of the amendments are approved, could potentially be subject to the TDM ordinance, but those other two examples, the fleet services building and the east-west BRT terminal, were not subject to TDM. So I do see your point, but I was definitely trying to consider other projects and know that the city is working on a lot of different investments and building new buildings and expanding parking lots that could potentially be subject to TDM in the future. So in considering other amendments as part of this package, I definitely at least wanted to explore the implications for city-owned property and thought that it would be good to bring the discussion to Plan Commission and Transportation Commission, which you'll be there on Wednesday. So,
Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. Just a couple of questions again. So did I hear that the new Parks Division building was not subject to TDM, the relocation of Parks?
The one on Lakeside, correct. It was not. And say if, it happened today, it still wouldn't be, because the use was packaged into a public safety facility, which is explicitly exempt from TDM.
Clever. Okay. That seems a little strange. A second question, I just wanted to make sure, I think it was Commissioner Solheim that was asking about what we're actually considering. We're also not considering, at this point, anything related to county owned as well as state and federal, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it would at this point in time just be wholly city owned. That's what's in Legistar as the proposed text.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that county was included in that list. Thank you.
Any other questions of either of our staff people, Eric or Trent? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
Sorry, I have one less screen, so I'm trying to pull up my thing. I will move that the Plan Commission recommends amendment of the Mass and General Ordinances related to transportation demand management to clarify the TDM procedures as described in the staff report.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Spencer. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, I think, the main item of discussion is the wholly city-owned. At first, that seems like just a select few properties, but once you start naming them off, it actually includes a couple of things which it seems like that hasn't applied to them anyway. There's been other ways where that has been achieved. And I think for most uses like parks and things, it makes a lot of sense. I would be very hesitant to expand this to other government entities. And I think, to the question of CDA properties and things like that, a lot of those that are developed or become a taxable entity would not fall under this exemption, which gives me more comfort as well, which is why I'm making the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further comments, discussion, input before we come to a vote? Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. I'm still a little bit nervous about this, but I'm going to support it and hope that the Transportation Commission chews on this further. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck. Anything else? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on then, and thank you, Trent, for being here, and Eric to respond to questions. Next is agenda item 3, Legistar 80795. Authorizing the execution of a release of a platted 40-foot no building area restriction on 4115 Maple Grove Drive, District 7. And we will have Tim Parks talk to us about that. And I did ask that he give a bit of information about this because this is so unusual to have that kind of no build area and such a wide no build area. So I wanted him to give us a little bit more information about that. Tim.
Sure. Thank you, Chair, members of the Plan Commission. The question is basically how the question that's before the Plan Commission under item 3, which is releasing a no building area, came to be in the first place and why it's in front of the Plan Commission now. Chair Zeller's question over the weekend was, how did it get there? And I think it's a fair question. And basically, the subdivision regulations have for many decades allowed the Plan Commission to impose building setbacks that are more restrictive than those that are allowed by the zoning code. And that is effectively what happened here. There are and has been the ability in the subdivision regulations to require things like buffers along the frontages of certain subdivisions so that the rear or side yards of some subdivisions and the lots therein are adequately landscaped, screened, or set back from higher order streets and highways. As far as staff can tell related to the plat of Nesbitt Valley and the restriction that was put in place that the Plan Commission is asked to release or recommend to the council release of, came about probably through a culmination of a few things that were in play at the time that the Nesbitt Valley plat was approved around 2001. At that time, the city of Madison and the city of Verona had a community separation buffer that was part of an intergovernmental agreement that the two communities had between 1996 and 2016. And that community separation buffer, while we don't believe that it applied east of Maple Grove Drive, may have informed the the dual 40-foot restrictions that affect 4115 Maple Grove Drive. So there's a 40-foot planting area, and then immediately north of that was a 40-foot no building area. It's the 40-foot no building area that the Plan Commission is being asked to recommend the release of to the council. The city of Verona ended the intergovernmental agreement in 2016, as was allowed for within the agreement. Basically, they asked not to extend it for another 10 years from 2016 to 2026. And once that was done, that was the end of the agreement. The city also has, in the case of certain highway or street reconstruction projects, particularly in newly developing areas of the city, imposed setbacks that are more stringent than what the zoning code would require. The reasons for that are many. Sometimes it's tied to the receipt of federal funding for a project, to limit impacts from noise and vibration from road projects, and other related impacts that the city engineer will recommend that the Plan Commission impose a setback, typically either 30 or 40 feet, depending on the order of the street. The higher the setback, the higher the order of the street. The city rebuilt the Maple Grove Nesbitt cross-country intersection around 2004, converted it from a road section that Nesbitt continued out what is currently Maple Grove Drive, south of cross-country Maple Grove. Cross-country Nesbitt. Used to go out to the city of Verona, and cross-country road teed into it. Maple Grove teed into Nesbitt, and we recreated that intersection about 20 years ago into what you see out there now. And in so doing, that may have been an impetus for some of the setbacks that affect 4115. And then lastly, there are mapped setbacks related to Badger Prairie landfill, now affectionately known as Badger Prairie County Park. It's actually Dane County Sanitary Landfill number 1. And there are setbacks that are imposed west of Maple Grove Drive to limit vapor impacts from the landfill, though that does not appear to apply here. So in preparing the resolution, we dug through the files that we could find and believed that the closest rationale for the dual 40-foot restrictions on the site is the community separation zone, which was never specifically applied to this property and is no longer in effect. We believe that probably informs why there's the provision for allowing the release of the no building area if there's an exemplary site and landscaping plan. So that is the best that we could probably figure, and why there is a relief valve built into the platted restriction. Now, the question before the Plan Commission is to say, should that relief valve be used? And staff recommends that yes, it should be. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tim. Are there any questions of Tim on this agenda item? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I will move that the Plan Commission authorize execution of a release of a platted 40-foot no building area restriction on 4115 Maple Grove Drive.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Heck. Commissioner Solheim, did you wish to speak to your motion?
No, thanks for that overview, Tim.
Okay, thank you. Are there any comments, discussion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is agenda item 5, Legistar 79963, located at 702 through 726 South High Point Road and 601 through 701 South Junction Road, District 1. Consideration of an alteration to an approved plan development district specific implementation plan to allow a private school tenant in the existing Holy Name Heights Bishop O'Connor Center mixed use development. And again, I'm going to turn to Tim Parks.
Hello again. This item was before the Plan Commission at its November 13th meeting. And for the members who were not present at that meeting, the Plan Commission did hold a public hearing and heard a brief report about what the question before the Plan Commission is. We'll recap that in a second. The reason why the Plan Commission was unable to act was we ran into some technical issues and some database issues preparing the notices to adjacent properties, both owners and occupants. We have fortunately resolved that, and we sent, I believe, 1,100 postcards for this public hearing to the properties both in the city of Madison and town of Middleton within 200 feet of the site. So we are fully noticed for this meeting. And so now with the sort of technocratic stuff in the background, just a reminder for the Plan Commission that 702, 726 South High Point Road, 601, 701 South Junction Road is a request by St. Ambrose Academy and the Catholic Diocese of Madison to amend the zoning text for Holy Name Heights, the Bishop O'Connor Catholic Pastoral Center mixed-use development, to allow St. Ambrose to occupy approximately 23,730 square feet of space within the multi-story mixed-use building that sits near the center of the subject property, roughly 72-acre subject site. At the time that the plan development was approved for Holy Name Heights in December 2014, schools were not listed as a permitted or an allowed use in the zoning text that governs this particular plan development. As such, in order for St. Ambrose, which is a private religious middle and high school that serves students in grades 6 through 12 to occupy the space within the building currently occupied by Catholic Charities, they need to amend the zoning text to include schools, public and private in the list of allowed uses, which would, if approved, allow for St. Ambrose to then proceed to get the permits they need to convert the office space into the middle and high school occupancy. There are no changes to the exterior of the building proposed. The standards that are applicable to the Plan Commission tonight for their consideration are in the plan development section that basically allow alterations to plan developments to be approved by the Plan Commission if the requested alterations are consistent with the concept approved by the Common Council using the standards in the plan development section 28.098 parent 2. Staff has reviewed the project and believes that the Plan Commission can find that the addition of the school use is consistent with the mixed-use development that was approved by the Plan Commission and the Common Council in 2014. The site is recommended for special institutional in the comprehensive plan. The school, we feel, at least as a use in the use list, is complementary with the special institutional recommendations for the site, as well as the historical use of the property. And I would be happy to answer questions following the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I will open the public hearing. The first registrant is Kathleen Lowry, South High Point Road, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. Kathleen, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, I'm in contact with Kathleen right now. Can we come back to that registrant?
Sure. The next registrant is Ronald Trachtenberg, Century Avenue, Middleton, in support and wishing to speak, representing St. Ambrose Academy. Ronald, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
I represented St. Ambrose, and I spoke last time, so I'll be short. As Mr. Parks noted, we believe that St. Ambrose is a perfect fit for this special institutional and historic uses that has been consistent with the Holy Name Seminary. We feel we are a good match. It is a good match for the school because of the classroom space, the gymnasium, the play fields, and including the chapel, which is central to the purpose of St. Ambrose as a religious school. There have been two areas of objection raised. One is a potential noise issue, and the other is a potential safety issue. On the potential noise issue, I would note that we will make certain by noise testing that none of the noise in the school crosses over into any of the other uses. And if we do find any noise crossing over into the other use spaces, we will take appropriate action to attenuate that noise. As to the school safety issues, there are other speakers here who will talk about the cameras, the locked doors, the whole safety package has been put together. We do not believe that St. Ambrose poses a safety danger to the residents, and we do not believe that the residents will pose a safety danger to St. Ambrose. We would also recommend, if there's any questions about it, that on the noise issue and on the safety issue, that our plans be reviewed by not only building inspection, but by fire and police. And with that, I thank you, and we hope that you approve our request.
Thank you. The next registrant is Angela Heinlein, in support and wishing to speak, representing St. Ambrose Academy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Angela Heinlein, Director of Enrollment and Learning Services at St. Ambrose, and I also spoke at the last meeting on November 13th. Today, I'd like to address additional safety details and some misconceptions that may have been mentioned. First, students will come in the main entrance between 7:30 a.m. and 8 a.m. with staff supervising the Holy Name Heights main lobby. The students will travel up about 10 stairs, 30 seconds to enter into our segregated space. Also, as recommended by the Wisconsin Department of Justice Office of School Safety, the school's main entrance on the first floor will be locked and controlled with double doors at all times, except for the 30 minutes of arrival when the doors will be supervised. Admission to the exclusive space by visitors is tightly controlled under the supervision of the administrative assistant from within the business office on the first floor. No students will be passing in or around any resident apartments. They will not be allowed to go downstairs to the ground floor. And when in the gym area, the doors accessing ground floor apartments, as well as the third floor apartments, will be locked with no access to students. Disabled students may use the main lobby elevator, which provides access to the first floor double doors and will be supervised by staff on the elevator. The monitors will see that only disabled students use the elevator, except in special cases of special need. Students will be supervised by faculty staff when they are in a common area, such as traveling to the oratory or using the north end stairs to access the fields or the gym for recess and other activities. Cameras will be placed in relevant areas such as the main lobby and stairways to monitor any potential issues. There will also be someone at the front desk in the lobby at all times. A group text or app-based alert system for emergencies will be set up with designated people from the school, Holy Name Heights main entry desk, the diocese, residents through Gorman and Blue Plate. And if an incident occurs in any of these areas, all other areas will be alerted. We really do desire to be great neighbors to all the other tenants using the building. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Angela. Our next registrant is Rick Mills, Meadowview Lane, in support wishing to speak, representing St. Ambrose Academy. Rick, you have 3 minutes.
Right. Thank you, Chair Zellers. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rick Mills. I am the parent of 3 St. Ambrose graduates and the current president of St. Ambrose Academy. Leasing space at Holy Name Heights presents St. Ambrose Academy with a wonderful opportunity. The location is ideal. The west side of Madison has space, and sitting on 72 acres, the Holy Name Heights facility has more than and all the current occupants. In fact, St. Ambrose would only occupy about 11% of the building. At Holy Name Heights, our students will have access to a large chapel, a large commons area, a gym, an athletic field, an outdoor green space, and a baseball diamond. Most of these basic school amenities have not been available to us in our past and present location. St. Ambrose Academy will make every effort to be a great neighbor and tenant at Holy Name Heights. We have looked at traffic and have planned for morning arrival and afternoon departures to minimize any traffic disruptions. St. Ambrose is not an open campus, so students will not be leaving and returning at lunch. We have monitored foot traffic at the main entrance to ensure this will be the best access point for our students and staff with minimal impact on other tenants. We have done a noise assessment of the gym in an apartment located just across the hall. This assessment showed that the 97 dBA of noise in the gym, which is the equivalent of a car horn at 16 feet, the noise level in the apartment was less than 50 dBA, which is considered average room noise. Matter of fact, the HVAC blower in the apartment was louder than the gym noise. We will be applying sound mitigation treatments to the gym to further minimize noise transmission. Additionally, we will be assessing noise transmission through the floors and ceilings to apartments above and below school spaces, and we'll share those results. Floor coverings in the school spaces have been chosen to mitigate any propagation of noise. As always, the safety of our students and the other Holy Name Heights occupants is of paramount importance to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Our next registrant is James Bartiglia. In support, wishing to speak, representing Roman Catholic Diocese of Madison. James, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, there's no person by that name in attendance.
Thank you. The next registrant is Janet Wheaton, South High Point Road, Madison opposed, wishing to speak. Janet, you have 3 minutes.
Again, Chair, no person by that name in attendance.
Okay, the next registrant is Michael Wick, South High Point Road, Madison, in support and wishing to speak, representing the Diocese of Madison. Michael, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Michael Wick, and I serve as the Chief of Staff for the Diocese of Madison. I've also been a tenant at Holy Name Heights since July 2022. Since November 22, I have headed the Exploration Committee investigating the possibility of St. Ambrose becoming an anchor tenant on the 70-plus acre campus, the exact site where a high school seminary once operated. I wish to stress that this effort has been a careful process of discussion and discernment. Tonight's planning meeting regarding rezoning is just one step, although an essential one, in this exploration process. Should rezoning be approved, a long-term lease agreement worked out, and the bishop give his blessing to move forward, there would be almost 10 months to continue a careful consultative process with experts and other authorities to ensure a safe, secure, and healthy coexistence of all communities involved, residential, commercial, and educational here at Holy Name Heights. I wish to reiterate that the Diocese of Madison, as well as St. Ambrose Academy, is committed to making safety and security our #1 priority. Additional cameras and alarms will be installed and procedures will be implemented. It should be noted that at the last Planning Commission meeting, the school publicly acknowledged its willingness to submit a proposed plan to police and other government authorities for review before the school is even opened. Moreover, November 20th, 2023, Catholic Charities and diocesan staff participated in active shooter and violence training offered by Dane County Sheriff's Office. To be clear, if allowed to relocate to the Holy Name Heights mixed-use campus, St. Ambrose students would never be unsupervised outside their segregated and secure school area. Moreover, they would always be accompanied by a faculty or staff member when going to the main chapel or upon entering or leaving the building. Lastly, the Diocese of Madison acknowledges that a few residents have asked to be released from current tenant agreements or perhaps shift to a month-to-month lease should school relocation become a reality. Such considerations would be considered only if the property is rezoned, if a long-term lease is worked out, and if Bishop Hine gives his blessing to such proposal after adequate consultation. Thank you for this opportunity to address the members of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Michael. Our next registrant is Thomas Soilist, South High Point Road, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. Thomas, you have 3 minutes.
Did you hear me at the beginning? I'm speaking on behalf of 18 residents who have signed a letter in opposition to this proposal. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The question I have for the commission members, and especially John Duncan, the mayor's rep, school district rep, and the common council members, are you willing to take the responsibility for the safety of the students and residents by approving this application? I read the Plan Commission standards, and it states under 6A1, the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. The state has put a lot of work into a comprehensive school safety framework. It's 89 pages. The main 2 points of this framework are, the first main point is to provide a secure private entrance to students. They don't mention monitors as being a replacement for a secure private entrance. The second point they raise is they have the most important effective deterrent to violence is to reduce public access by screening all people entering the building. While the first and second floor will be locked, the entrance to the main building is open to the public and will not be locked. This plan as proposed has shared public entrances, exits, elevators, stairwells, and hallways. There is no system in place that screens all people who enter the main entrance. John, you know what the main entrance looks like, and that's much different than the main entrance to the school. This plan does not reduce public access to students. The opposite is true. The public is welcome to use this building. I live in this building. People come here to worship. My friends come to visit me. There's 53 units here. We welcome visitors in our building. We share an entrance, exits, elevators, stairwells, and hallways. And if you approve this proposal, we will share it with students. The Madison Public Schools would not approve this plan. You should not apply lower standards for this school. There's a national priority to make schools safe by limiting public access. The State School Safety Office has given guidelines to prevent violence in schools. You should not ignore the best practices identified by experts. Please, we have no qualms with St. Ambrose. I think it's a wonderful school, but do not run away from this decision on safety. A change in mixed use is a safety concern. I encourage you to invite someone from the school district and someone from the state office to speak. If this is approved, St. Ambrose will be the only school in Madison that shares an entrance, exit, elevator, stairwells, and hallways with the public. This is not a safe plan as it stands now. I'd like to say that Janet Wheaton is here. She just wasn't able to connect. And so she would be willing to make her comments now on my phone, but she wasn't able to connect on the link that was sent her.
Thank you, Thomas. Our next registrant is.
Would Janet be able to speak?
I don't see that she is. Oh, here she's registered. Okay. Yes, she could speak.
She would just speak on my link.
Yes, that's okay.
Thank you.
And she has 3 minutes.
September 2006, I received an emergency call. My friend was hiding with children in the library at Weston School. Eric Hainstock, a 9th grader, entered the unlocked doors with a shotgun. Janitor wrestled the shotgun away and the principal struggled with the student. Eric pulled a .22 out of his jacket and fatally shot Mr. Klang. Announcement came over the loudspeaker, code blue. At St. Ambrose current locked location at 3 Point Place, Their webpage reports only 67% of the students feel safe. That percentage would drop exponentially in an unlocked, unsecured building at Holy Name Heights. Our 3 oldest grandchildren attend private Catholic school, grades 6 through 12. The rules and protocols in place are strict and strictly monitored. A dismissive approach to concerns and questions is both insulting and dangerous. As of 11/17 this year, 77 school shootings, 50 at K through 12, leaving 34 dead and 85 injured. School shootings are increasing and no type of community is spared. Without taking measures to completely close off an entire wing of this building, it will never be safe as a school. When a school seminary 3 decades ago, it was only a school. No school in mixed use with open access anywhere. There are 8 entrances, exits, shared elevators, stairwells, and hallways, many rooms and multiple places. In Monsignor's lecture at our informational meeting on 11/6, he said, I quote, "The building oozes as spread out," end quote. With all due respect, this may be a positive for now, but an impactful negative for all those present in the building when a threat occurs. School safety is paramount. The misconceptions I've heard from city officials is disconcerting. Our Alder and Plan Commission member thought he was visiting a monastery. The police last summer, when investigating kids trying to open apartment doors and accessing the inside of a residence, said they had no idea these were apartments. Matt Tucker, director of city building inspection, mansplained to me, end quote, "This is a private building. They can do whatever they want," end quote. One of the questions at the header of the Plan Commission agenda reads, how can policymakers mitigate unintended consequences? Answer, it is irresponsible in this day and age where school shootings have increased for this commission to narrow the depth of trauma down to changing language by adding 9 words to a piece of paper that will speak volumes. Your decision cannot be taken lightly and without responsibility for future mixed-use plans with schools involved.
Thank you, Janet. Our next registrant is Heather Sweeney, South High Point Road, opposed and wishing to speak. Heather, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I already spoke the last meeting, so I will keep it very short. I think the main thing I want to point out, and not only echoing all of the concerns of my fellow residents, but I'd also like to point out that many of these concerns have been brought up since the beginning. They were, in particular, I'd like to highlight the concerns with the lack of physical segregation between the school and the residential areas. This concern in particular was brought up in the original April meeting. It was brought up in the late October meeting. It was brought up at the last planning commission meeting. And there still isn't an actual tangible plan to address it. And so while St. Ambrose might say that they have plans to address some of this feedback in the future, with their scheduled construction to begin in basically a month at this point, within January, I have really no confidence that any of these concerns are going to be addressed, given that they haven't been addressed since April. I also submitted some written comments earlier, and I saw a number of residents who weren't able to speak at this meeting did submit those written comments as well. And so I would encourage the members of the Planning Commission to read those. And one issue that I think hasn't been discussed yet is issues of public health and a lack of established procedure for how St. Ambrose will handle its responsibilities to public health of the residents as well as the students, given that they will now be in a mixed-use building. That's kind of all I have to say since I spoke last week as well. So thank you for allowing me to speak, and I hope that you do listen to not only my concerns, but the concerns of other residents who submitted written comments as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. The next registrant is Bonnie Calla, Ashwaubery Lane, Madison, in support and wishing to speak. Bonnie, you have 3 minutes.
Chair, there's no person in attendance by that name.
Okay, thank you. So we will loop back to Kathleen Lowry, South High Point Road, Madison, opposed and wishing to speak. Kathleen, you have 3 minutes.
Kathleen, you should see a prompt. It might be, yeah, there you go. You're unmuted.
Thank you. I'm a 70-year-old single woman. I spent thousands of dollars to move from Minneapolis to Madison because I thought it was a kind, peaceful city. And because I was on the waiting list, I had many conversations with Jim Jurg, the property manager representing Gorman, and not one word was said about this school. 280 students, including high school seniors who will be driving. Not one word was said to me. And that is both immoral and illegal. And the diocese, I've written for 2 months and talked directly to people, and I get a cold shoulder every time. I can't tell you how upsetting it is to think that I signed a financial commitment. I told Jim I planned to spend the rest of my life here. And I bought furniture and curtains and was really excited. And then boom, a month later, I hear from other residents, they're putting a school in. It's just, it isn't right. And it isn't right for the diocese, Michael Wick, to say, when we feel like it, we'll consider the month-to-month rent. I have to start rebuilding a life. I was an addictions counselor for my career. I'm not well-to-do. I don't have the money to spend give the diocese $12,000 to live there until next July. I just can't do it. It's not doable. And it might not be a big deal to Michael Wick or the other people at the diocese, but it's a huge deal in my life. I need a month-to-month rent so that I can start over. It's just simply not right. I mean, the law, there are two laws about this. The Administrative Rule 134.09, no landlord may misrepresent the location or characteristics in order to induce a person to enter into a rental agreement. Jim knew darn well I would never, ever have signed a lease if someone had said, oh, the plans have been started since last November. I never would have signed it. I never would have spent that money. And this is, cruel to me personally. Way to treat someone who put themselves in the hands of the diocese. It's really cruel and it's illegal. And the diocese is not above the law. I'm complete.
Thank you, Kathleen. I just want to check here to see if there's any. Okay, there's a few people who are registered as available to answer questions. Allison Hetu, Queensbridge Road, Madison support, available to answer questions. Laura McBain, North Pass McFarland, support, available to answer questions. Matt Hersher, Lee Lewin Drive, support, available to answer questions. Lino Antonio, Alpine Road, support. Robert Arntz, Centennial Parkway, Wanakee, support. Amy Peterson, South High Point Road, opposed. And Jim Olson, Demingway, support, representing St. Ambrose Academy. Are there questions? Heather, did you have something?
Yes, there is one late registrant, Anne Marie Dunlap of South High Point Road, opposed.
Okay. And you have 3 minutes.
Chair, there's no person by that name in attendance.
Okay, thank you. So I will go back then. Are there questions of any of our registrants? Questions of any of our registrants? Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. This would be a question for someone from St. Ambrose, and I apologize. I was not at the last meeting. I did listen to this section, but did have a question. I thought I saw in the letter of intent that St. Ambrose currently uses the gym, and I think some of the grounds. And I was just wondering kind of what is your current practice for students entering and exiting the building for use of the gym? And how has that gone to date?
Angela, could you answer that? And if not, could you indicate who we should unmute to answer?
Sure, I will answer that from a procedure and protocol perspective from our school. So in terms of using the gym, we do have basketball practices there. And when our students are there, they're supervised by coaches or staff during their time when they are in the gym location. Additionally, if we have been out there for another event, recently we were there for a play. Oops, am I no longer on?
No, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I saw someone else's name on the screen. I apologize. So we were recently there for a pretty large event where we brought all of our students to go to mass and also to watch a theatrical production in the theater. Our entire faculty was present. We were escorting our students from the grounds, the fields, into the church. Our staff were in the church at all times. We were with them as they went into the theater to watch the theatrical production. And we also escorted them to and from bathrooms, things like that. And so we have our staff safety measures in place that we use at all times. And we feel that that has gone well in terms of how we are supervising students at all times when they're in that location or any other location.
Thank you, Angela. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Solheim?
Yes, thank you.
Did you have any follow-up? No. Commissioner Shepherd.
This question, I guess, would be for Angela also. Have you had local law enforcement, the Madison Police Department, come out and take a look at the site in terms of what is being proposed? I'm asking this because, again, there's always a safety concern, and they would be the first responders. So have you had any sort of review or consultation with first responders if this development were to go forward?
One of our parents is a Fitchburg police officer, and that parent is also on our safety committee. Additionally, we have two other safety committee members that one is retired FBI, the other is retired DOJ. And together we have all walked through the building, and all of those individuals have made those recommendations in terms of how we should secure our space, how we should monitor with cameras, double doors, and all of those sorts of things. Additionally, our Fitchburg parent has also stated that for final review that he would like us to have the Madison Police Department come in and review everything before we would open the doors.
Okay, so to be clear, you haven't had that done yet by the Madison Police Department, but you're saying that that is something that you would explore at a later date.
Yes, absolutely. That is a part of our plan. And as I stated, we do have a local police officer in Fitchburg, and other experienced individuals on our security team. And yes, we plan to have the Madison police out to ensure that everything is up to their approval as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Did that answer your question, Commissioner Shepherd?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alder Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I just received an email that Ann Dunlap is now available. I don't know if we would be able to open the public comment back up to allow her to speak.
That would be fine. I have not closed the public hearing.
Okay.
So Ann Dunlap, and where is she? Is she registered?
She was the late registrant that wasn't on the thing. I just received an email saying that she was there.
Okay, thank you very much. So Ann Dunlop, South High Point Road. Do you find her, Jesse?
Chair, I don't. Alder Duncan, do you know if they stated that perhaps they were on phone?
I just
Looks like Alder Duncan froze up there.
Yeah, I don't see anyone by that name. There is a phone number on here that could just be a listener, but it doesn't match anything in registration.
Okay, so Jesse, could I ask you if Ann Dunlop pops up that you will let us know then?
Sure. Sorry, the email I now just got says she will be speaking on Tom's phone. So I'm assuming Tom Solis, the gentleman.
Sure, just 1 second.
This is Tom's phone speaking. Ann will now speak.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead, Ann. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Ann Dunlap. I'm a retired physician from Chicago and a grateful recipient of many years of Catholic education. When COVID hit in early 2020, the only known protections were hand washing, adequate ventilation, masking, and social distancing. Wisconsin Governor Evers attempted to limit large gatherings, including attendance at church services. Bishop Hying threatened to sue him in June 2020 so that attendance he thought appropriate would continue, asserting that the church is above a state mandate, even when that mandate is created to protect the vulnerable. Bishop Hying acknowledges a subsequent significant fall in church attendance and donations. I do not believe he understood that church attendees will not trust the clergy for their spiritual well-being if they do not believe that such clergy cares for their physical well-being. The back and forth, however, continued of this exchange with the introduction of a proposed amendment to the Wisconsin Constitution, which passed the Republican-controlled Wisconsin Senate, that ordered places of worship to shut down or limit the size of gatherings during declared state of emergency. It barred the state from doing this. This position will be widely discussed within medical organizations in the coming year. During the pandemic itself, the experience here at Holingham Heights, a complex use facility with rental apartments, a catering company, diocesan offices, Catholic charity offices, a chapel, and several meeting venues used for catechism and other classes, was mixed. Although the Dane County mask mandate was posted on all facility entrance doors from July 20th, 2020 until March 1st, 2022, compliance was followed infrequently by diocesan visitors, including the clergy, the choral group, the catechism class, and other multiple meeting attendees. This was in spite of free masks available at the front desk and mailroom and the public posting of the monthly Dane County Public Health Department memorandum on COVID and the need for continued masking. Given the introduction of a school to this facility and the above instances of profound disrespect for public health evidenced by diocesan members, I strongly urge that the Planning Commission insist that the recent recommendations of both the Dane County Public Health Department and the Wisconsin Department of Public Health, that the May 11, 2023 CDC operational guidance for K-12 schools be implemented, and that this implementation be monitored by the Dane County Public Health Department with appropriate public reporting. This is not only for the safety of the school and the residents, but also for all visitors. Again, thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you, Anne Marie. That concludes, I think, our registered speakers. Are there any further questions for any of the registrants? Seeing no raised hands, I'll close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Alder Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if Tim could speak to what we as commissioners can evaluate when we are making our decision tonight on this resolution or on this matter.
So the conditions basically that we need to follow.
Yes.
Tim.
Sure. The Plan Commission's consideration or their jurisdiction on this is somewhat limited because the question first and foremost is whether the proposed change to the specific implementation plan for Holy Name Heights is consistent with the concept that was approved by the Common Council, given consideration of the standards for approval of plan developments. Basically, the Common Council approved a plan development here in 2014 using the standards as they were at that time. And so the Plan Commission's decision is whether the alteration is consistent with that concept, which met the standards. So in terms of, the scope of the alteration, it's primarily a change to the zoning text. There aren't physical changes to the building that are being, or that would fall under the Plan Commission's purview being proposed. Taking existing floor area, converting it from one use to another use is typically not something that we would see come through an alteration process. The reason why this has to come before the Plan Commission is because the zoning text doesn't allow the proposed use currently, and so the Plan Commission has to determine if the addition of the school as a use is consistent with the concept approved by the Common Council in 2014. In terms of conditioning related to that, I would say that again, there are some guardrails on what the Plan Commission can do, and any conditions it would want to put on the alteration request would have to be done in finding that the alteration is consistent with the concept, kind of similar to how the Plan Commission would put conditions of approval on a conditional use, which this is not. One of the speakers during the public hearing was quoting some of the conditional use standards. That is not what this is. But in those cases, the conditions that the Plan Commission adds, it's supposed to do so to find that the standards for approval would be met. So if there's a condition that would help the Plan Commission find that the alteration is consistent with the concept approved by the Common Council, I think that would be roughly in bounds, and I would certainly welcome Heather's input on that as well.
Heather, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I don't. I think Tim covered it well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you have any further questions, Alder Duncan?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you. That was kind of my first questions. So Alder from can speak from my list here, but I want to be very specific with a few additional questions for either Tim or Heather. So does the Plan Commission has any purview over tenants and landlord disputes?
Yeah.
Can one of you please answer that?
Typically, no. Not for this question. In terms of any back and forth between a property owner and a tenant, I wouldn't say that resolution of those disputes would typically come to the Plan Commission, even if it's relevant to a land use question that's pending before the Commission.
Okay, thanks. Does the Plan Commission or Building Inspection has any purview over a lease, a contract language between a landlord and a tenant?
The Plan Commission, no. And as far as I'm aware, the Building Inspection would only be involved if there were violations of the minimum housing code that would, if not remedied by a landlord, could lead to a rent abatement decision that is administered by the Building Inspection Division through a hearing process. But in terms of that sort of debate between a landlord and a tenant about what they, what one feels the lease says or doesn't, that wouldn't typically be certainly for the Plan Commission, and I don't believe for the Building Inspection Division either. I think that would actually fall to the Department of Civil Rights that has a tenant rights coordinator. Got it. So it would actually be through DCR, not through building inspection.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. Okay, and I have two more questions. And does PC the Plan Commission has any purview over school regulations and processes? I mean, I know the council doesn't, but does the Plan Commission has any say on those kind of details?
In terms of dictating a particular the way the school operates, again, I would say that any conditions related to any conditions that the Plan Commission would want to put on this specific alteration request would have to be tied to finding that condition would allow the Plan Commission to approve the alteration as being consistent with what the Common Council approved.
And then finally, does Plan Commission has any purview over federal, state, county, public health, city emergency orders like the one that we had for COVID? To put anything in place for kind of any emergency order related stipulations?
It wouldn't typically be an action in the zoning code. In the zoning code's police powers to require adherence to federal, state, or county mandates. There's probably, given more time to think about it, maybe some gray area where maybe we would point somebody in a direction, but generally I would say no.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Alder. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Tim, this is probably for you. With regards to, I'll call it impacts of, potential impacts of approving this alteration, how would consideration of such impacts differ from, say, when we considered the conversion of a public school for Capitol High in the Hoyt Park area? I mean, in that situation, I believe it was conditional use consideration, so it was different. And how can you just explain to us why this is a different situation than that?
Well, it boils down to the zoning, from the standpoint that in that case, and I don't recall exactly what Hoyt School, the former Hoyt School, now Capitol High, what that zone, but it was zoned conventional residential. It may have been zoned Parks and Rec, in fact, because it's nestled in Hoyt Park, but be that as it may, it was a conditional use. And so a different section of the zoning code applies in terms of process, the standards for approval, the ability to condition. Here, this is a plan development. It's governed under 28.098 of the zoning code. And every plan development district across the city, the roughly 550 that we have, even though they're the same PD identification on the zoning map, each one is different. Each one of them has a specific set of plans that governs it, has a zoning text that governs it specifically for that site, which is unique to any zoning text for any other plan development across the city. So in this case, we're not dealing with the conditional use standards presently. And it's an important matter to point out that even, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I think it's relevant to answering Commissioner Heck's question, that if the Plan Commission was inclined to approve schools, public and private, in the zoning text for Holy Name Heights, and do it as a conditional use, because every zoning text, conventional or planned development, has permitted uses and it has conditional uses. If we were to say tonight that, okay, schools would, including schools in the zoning text for this particular PD, is consistent with the approval of that PD, but we want to do it as a conditional use, we would actually do it all over again, because St. Ambrose would have to come back and actually apply for a conditional use. And then the conditional use standards would be before the Plan Commission. We would be having a conditional use public hearing, and we would be using the standards in 28.183 parent 6, which are the conditional use standards. For those of you who don't have parts of the zoning code memorized, which says nothing for how I spend most of my evenings. So they could come back and request a conditional use, and then we would be having a conditional use hearing. And that would be similar to the last contentious conditional use to come before the Plan Commission, the animal daycare over on Junction Road. That was a conditional use approval in plan development zoning by dint of how the zoning text for that plan development was created back in the 1990s. That made it such that the animal daycare required conditional use approval. And so that is something that would be on the table for the Plan Commission.
Thanks, Tim. That was super helpful in understanding the options here. I'll address that hypothetical later, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck. Are there further questions of staff? Are there further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Alder Figueroa Cole.
Thank you. So I'll move that the Plan Commission finds the proposed alteration to allow a private school tenant in the existing Holy Name Heights Bishop O'Connor Catholic Pastoral Center mixed-use development at 702 to 726 South High Point Road, 601 to 701 South Junction Road is consistent with the specific implementation plan approved by the Common Council and the plan development standards, and recommends approval of the request.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Heck. Did you? I thought you had your hand up. Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Heck. Alder Figueroa Cole, did you wish to speak to your motion?
I mean, I think to me, it is again down to the pre-approved plans and recommendations, and these those feed those recommendations, which is the only purview that the Plan Commission has at this moment. So that's what I'm putting for the motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder. Alder Duncan.
Yes, I was wanting to see if I could make a friendly amendment to that motion.
What would you, why don't you go ahead and move it as an amendment, and then we'll vote on it separately? What's your
So
amendment?
it's approving it with the condition that the applicant submit an access and safety plan for the facility, which ensures equitable access and safety for all users to the fire marshal, building inspection division, and planning division, and that this plan must be reviewed and approved by the aforementioned parties before recording of the alteration and issuance of permits.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole. Are there discussions about the amendment? Alder, Commissioner Heck. I knew I'd do that sometime, Commissioner Heck.
Thanks. I'd just like to ask staff if that is doable in the time frame that Alder Duncan is proposing.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shepherd.
I would just ask if the Madison Police Department could be included in that. I think earlier it was mentioned that that was something they were planning on doing anyway.
Okay, consider that in. That seems like a kind of an oversight on that. So, okay, very good. Thank you. Any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, we will come to a vote on the amendment, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously, and now that is part of the main motion. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Just very quickly, I wanted to reference what I had asked Tim Parks about and the information the good information that he provided. It is possible that we could kick this can down the road and ask them to come back with a conditional use request within the PD, but I think we'd end up in the exact same place. I sense that commissioners are leaning towards approving this, and I think that we would simply cause the school, the plan commission, the neighbors to continue this and end up with the same result. So that's why I'm not proposing that.
Thank you, Commissioner Heck. Any further discussion, comments on this? Seeing no raised hands, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is agenda item 6, Legistar 80223, located at 4205 Portage Road, Alder District 17, consideration of an alteration of an approved conditional use for a residential building complex in the traditional residential urban 1 district to allow the mulch in planting beds to be changed from wood to stone. Hold on just a second. I have to get to that on the, and we do have a registrant, Nick, no last name, Parmenter Street, Middleton, in support and wishing to speak, representing Vive Holdings, LLC, Parmenter Street, Middleton. Nick, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Nick Patterson here. This request is before you because we have had a number of issues with other developments where we have wood mulch. Wood mulch washes out onto our sidewalks and pets tend to eat the mulch. We've had great success in using stone mulch in many of our developments as it is more durable than wood. It minimizes environmental impact and carbon footprint. There's don't have to worry about disposal, less trips to the site to replace and dispose of it. Wood mulch also, as I mentioned, commonly washes away during stormfall. we have one property in particular that's a common theme. When there's rain, wind, it always washes up onto the sidewalk. And then, while stone mulch does not. Wood mulch can attract pests and encourages mold growth unless it's treated. But if it's treated, then it poses a larger threat to our pets. And stone mulch is pest and mold resistance and is a safer option for pets. No other changes to the landscape plan are being requested. The landscape plan will still exceed the city's landscape requirements by more than 5 times what's required. And that'll be it. I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Nick. Are there any questions of our registrant? Commissioner Shepherd.
Just to get clarification with Nick, you're seeking for a wholesale change to move from, again, wood mulch to stone. You're looking for the entire site, not just particular areas. Is that clear? Is that what you're doing?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of our registrant? Seeing no raised hands, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for staff. Has the Plan Commission set a precedent before for granting this type of request, a shift from wood mulch to stone?
Yeah, good question. So I will say that back in January of this year, when this larger project, 483 units and 5 buildings, was approved by the Plan Commission, this was a discussion at that time, and stone mulch is allowable in the city's zoning code. So I want to make that really clear. In this particular case, the Urban Design Commission reviewed the proposal since it is a multi-building complex. And in their advisory recommendation to the Plan Commission, suggested that the mulch be organic or wood mulch rather than stone mulch. The Plan Commission upheld that after some discussion in January. And before this project moves forward, the applicant is seeking, again, relief from that condition. I can't recall any other examples of where this has been requested or granted by the Plan Commission, but again, want to clarify that it is an allowable material to be utilized as mulch, and that being stone. And it doesn't involve any other changes to the landscape plan. They would still be required to have the site landscaped, with live plantings. And the one condition of approval that the zoning staff placed on this, should the Plan Commission approve the switch to stone, is that if stone is utilized, it must be applied over a weed barrier in order to protect the areas from weeds. So super short answer is no. I was hoping to provide a quick overview and thank my colleague Chris Wells for doing this quick report this time around. Finally, I do want to make sure that the Plan Commission takes care when making the decision this evening to cite findings of fact. And I think the staff report does a good job of laying out the most relevant standard of approval, and that's conditional use standard 9 for the Plan Commission to be considering. One more reiteration of the staff report is that the Urban Design Commission did again look at this issue, and in their vote, they voted to uphold the previous decision to have the mulch, the mulch be wood or organic mulch rather than stone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Any further questions of staff? Seeing no raised hands, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Shepherd.
I'll move that the Plan Commission find that the conditional use standard 9 that deals with design standards and environmental standards have not been met, and that this be placed on file.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alderfield. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Shepherd?
The only thing I would say is that in the UDC report, it notes that that UDC would be open to limited use of stone on the site. So it sort of came down to an all or nothing sort of situation here. So UDC in their report, they seemed to be open to that option, but apparently that option was not available. So this is what it is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion, and I also would encourage the applicant to consider asking for an exception for the example that they provided us in the materials. That photo was from Veritas Village, which is on East Mifflin and Livingston, just around the corner from where I live, and it floods. It's street flooding that's causing the problems with their beds rather than the rain itself. And it may be that on the corner of that development where they are subject to street flooding, they might be able to get an alteration to an existing conditional use if that were applicable. So I think there are opportunities for stone mulch, but just a blanket change I wouldn't support. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further comments, observations, discussion? Seeing none, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. And next we have agenda item 15 and 16. Which are related and will be considered as one public hearing. Agenda item 15, Legistar 80637, creating sections of the Madison General Ordinance to change the zoning of property located at 3002 through 3020 Meyer Road from agricultural district to industrial limited district in Alder District 16. And agenda item 16, Legistar 80234, approving a certified survey map of property owned by the estate of William C. Blatterman, same location. And Heather will be giving us an overview. Heather?
I will pass that one along to my colleague, Tim.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy to do it. Just very briefly, items 15 and 16 were actually on the consent agenda for the Plan Commission's consideration. However, Heather Caro is registered neither in support and wishing to speak. And so that was part of the reason why it was taken off. Just a very brief overview. The Blatterman family which Heather Caro represents, is requesting approval to rezone 3.75 acres of the family's larger 98.88 acre parcel at 3002 and 3020 Meyer Road from ag zoning to industrial limited, and to allow two existing buildings that sit on a portion of the 3002 Meyer Road frontage to be, well, one building's on 3002, the other building's on 3020, I stand corrected. They're seeking to put both of those on one lot. So create a 3.75 acre lot, zone it industrial limited. There's a remnant from an old certified survey map lot that would remain zoned agricultural and would become an outlot. because once it's platted as a lot, it can't be unplatted, if you will. At least not through any sort of simple, straightforward process. So one outlot, one lot. The lot is zoned or is proposed to be zoned IL. Everything else, including the outlot, remains zoned ag. Staff has reviewed the request and feels that it's consistent with both the comprehensive plan and the Ahara Hills Neighborhood Development Plan, both of which recommend the proposed lot for industrial uses. Other portions of the Blatterman property are also recommended for industrial. However, the applicant is not seeking approval to zone more of the property or create additional lots at this time, although there may be future applications to that effect. Staff is recommending approval subject to the conditions in the staff report, and we'll be happy to answer questions after the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I will open the public hearing and call upon registrant Heather Caro, Alpine Parkway, Oregon, neither support nor opposed and wishing to speak. Heather, you have 3 minutes.
Hello. We put in the request for the rezone, and we do have a couple of questions that we would like to possibly see amended. The city engineer question number 15, the outlet development has a restriction from future development. We would like to know what that truly means. We would ask that this restriction be removed, as we do own all the parcels surrounding. We have a private road, Old Meyer Road, that I feel that the restriction was put in there due to a road that they would like extended from Omita to Meyer Road. And us owning Old Meyer Road, that could be an alternate access road from Omita to Meyer Road that we could use for future access, which they want. And then we have the, the planning development number 4 question. What needs to happen to revise the environment corridor for the outlet lot? This corridor was changed in the Ahara Hills future development plans in May 2022. Previously, the corridor was on 3028, which is the land, and it only had 2 identified corridors that seeked about 28 acres, maybe 30. And once the city of Madison put in the CUSA, they put all 5 of our parcels into a corridor, almost 90% of our parcels into a corridor, which include 3 residential houses, a commercial building, and then all of the agricultural land. So we would like to know the environmental corridor, what the revisement is on that, of how we would get that revised. And then we would like to make sure that we do have confirmation on the addresses, as we had some discrepancies there, that when Blooming Grove, the city of Madison took over from Blooming Grove, there were some address changes. And also the zoning, we want to make sure that there's no discrepancies in there, because at one time there was some discrepancies on the zoning map. We want to make sure all those are accurate. And then what are the third thing, and I apologize, would be the water runoff. It states, obviously opening up a third parcel to the 1.5 acres. What is the cost of that? Since we do not use gutters or anything for the city runoff, everything that we're being charged is something we don't utilize. What is the additional charges for those?
Thank you, Heather. That Heather is the only registrant. Are there any questions for Heather? Any questions for Heather? Commissioner Shepherd.
If I can ask Heather, does she feel comfortable moving forward with this evening? I'm asking because that was a very long list of questions.
Could you unmute Heather?
sorry about that.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
My sister and I took over our father's properties because he passed. So right now we're very uncomfortable with everything. It's something that we would like to see done. We just have concerns about those notes that were put in the city of Madison noted that they would like to have for this to be approved. We would just like to see those things addressed or removed as stipulations because we do have so many alternative routes regarding especially the corridors, which we had already met with the city of Madison with a lawyer. We would have another parcel that we would be selling with the land, opening up the northeast section for another access route. We own 5 parcels. They're all around that area. We are trying to figure out what we truly are going to do and what we want to do, but also working with the city of Madison, the planning department. And I know I've gone through the O'Hara Hills future development plans, and we're doing our best to work with them and do what they see in their best interest, but also look at what is in our best interest. I feel that what I've asked to have removed or revised, we're able to work with them for alternative solutions. I guess to answer the question, as long as we can have those things addressed, we would be comfortable with it being approved, but I don't know if that's something that can be addressed or not.
Okay,
Thank you.
Any further questions of our registrant? Yes, Commissioner Heck.
Heather, I just wanted to ask if you have talked with planning staff about these matters, or are they kind of a surprise to you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm so sorry. We brought the corridor. We have had a meeting, and that is something that had been discussed. And it was said that the corridor would be adjusted at the time of sale, since we would be selling 2904 with the 3028, the land. The corridors could be removed or adjusted due to that. So that's why my concern is, what are they stating into these notes about the corridors? Because, like I said, we were blindsided about having just about 30 acres and then all of a sudden going to 90 acres in a corridor after a CUSA was put in that we didn't know about.
Okay, thanks. I maybe we can figure out a path forward. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for Heather? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Are there questions of staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Tim, I assume this is for you. It sounds like there's kind of a misunderstanding, I'll call it, about what was going to happen and what was going to be proposed and what was proposed. Do you agree with that? And is there do you think, a path forward by recommending a referral to kind of have another conversation about this, or am I misunderstanding?
We're a little up against the statutory clock that the city has to review the certified survey map, given the timing of Plan Commission and Common Council meetings at the end of the year. So the applicant could request referral. However, that wouldn't be an option just for the Plan Commission to take unilaterally. I would point out that I guess trying to take them in the order they appear in the report, that the condition to work with staff on the environmental corridor is one that the Plan Commission sees on a regular basis for whenever there's typically a subdivision that comes to the Plan Commission. You saw a similar condition earlier on this agenda with Pumpkin Hollow. When we put environmental corridors in place going through the Central Urban Service Area Amendment process, those are done with only a certain degree of specificity once we get more information from a landowner or a developer, exactly what the boundaries of those corridors are, we go through typically an administrative process with the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission to sort of fine tune the boundaries. And really what we're trying to do here is just take the portions that may affect Lot 1, make sure that CUSA boundary, that the environmental corridor boundary doesn't affect Lot 1, because that might be sort of anathema to the whole idea of creating a lot for existing buildings. The rest of it, because the rest of the property isn't really before the Plan Commission, aside from Outlot 1, which is that sort of leftover, if you will, that it can kind of just hang out there for a while, because really the only time that environmental corridor is going to come into play is when development is proposed and or a connection to water or sanitary sewer. And that's not being discussed at this time for Outlot 1 or any of the remaining property to the north and to the west. As far as the note regarding the future roadway, again, not before the Plan Commission tonight. The road that's shown in the neighborhood development plan goes through Outlot 1. The creation of Outlot 1, which is not a developable parcel at this time. It's just putting the property owner, the applicant, anybody that looks at the Blatterman parcels for potential future development on notice that we have a street planned through the portion of the properties outside of proposed Lot 1, outside of the proposed IL zoning. And so, again, traffic engineering and planning staff both have comments in the recommendations section speaking to that, just providing a heads up. Regarding whether or not Old Meyer Road could be reestablished in some form or another to provide that connection across the Blatterman property and connect Meyer Road and Almeida Drive, that's something that we're willing to consider. Again, not relevant to the question before the Plan Commission tonight from the standpoint that that's something that in talking with Heather Carroll a couple of weeks ago, staff is open to considering a more southerly approach to that east-west connection versus the one that's shown in the plan, which again, north of proposed Lot 1. So if they have an alternative that achieves the connection that the city wants, that involves reestablishing quote unquote Old Meyer Road in some form or fashion, we're willing to consider it. But whether or not that becomes the alignment or the alignment that's shown in the neighborhood plan, which is further north, is the alignment, isn't really before the Plan Commission tonight, because we're not doing anything tonight that would determine where that roadway is supposed to go. And I think and hope, finally, the last item regarding, I believe it was condition 15 from the engineering mapping section. Typically the connotation of an outlot is a development that, or a parcel that is not for development. Lot you can build, outlot typically you cannot build. And so what condition 15 is saying is that nobody's going to be able to do anything with outlot 1 until the outlot becomes a lot at a minimum. So you take out from lot before you can actually build on what's outlot 1 now. So that's again more of a note or a proviso for folks that would be looking at outlot 1 to say, gee whiz, I can't do anything with outlot 1. I'll have to go to the city, have the city approve, basically making outlot 1 into a lot, similar to what we're doing with lot 1, so that building can occur. Because again, outlots typically don't have the connotation of being suitable for private construction.
Thank you. That was very thorough. You managed to address all those points. Those are my questions for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Solheim.
Thank you. Just two questions to clarify, Tim. One, if we approve this with all, current conditions tonight, the applicant could still, after reviewing with staff and asking questions, come back if there was a condition that they could ask for a waiver. I mean, similar to what we just saw with the mulch. Is that correct?
Generally, I mean, what the Plan Commission and the Common Council would be doing with the current CSM is saying that it can be approved and recorded if the conditions are met.
Mm-hmm.
We could bring the matter back to the Plan Commission. It might require a subsequent agenda item and possibly a subsequent resolution of the Common Council. We actually had this question come up recently about how to undo a condition on an administrative certified survey map. And it was a lot of rigmarole. And so, yes, it can be done. It would just take a subsequent action of the Plan Commission and the Common Council if there was a condition of approval that could not be met for whatever reason and relief was needed.
Okay. Thank you. And then related to that, under a different scenario, if this was approved and after reviewing more, the applicant decided, this isn't exactly what I wanted, could they let it essentially go stale, not record it and to try again later?
Absolutely. They don't, they're only obligated to the conditions in the staff report if they want to go ahead. If they get an approval, those recommended conditions become conditions of approval. They have to meet them in order to get the city to sign the certified survey map and allow it to be recorded. If they decide that they don't want to go forward, they can just, walk away from it. I would say in a given year, probably 30% of the certified survey maps that we approve don't go any further than the letter of conditional approval.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. That was very helpful.
Any further questions of staff? Commissioner Heck.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Tim, if someone doesn't go through with an approved CSM, there are no timing limitations on when they can come back, correct?
The approval that would be granted tonight by the council resolution on December 5th would be good for 1 year. We typically, you could come back sooner than 1 year if they wanted a different approval effectively. And if for whatever reason the approval sits on the shelf for greater than a year and they wanted to go forward, we with a fair amount of frequency will reapprove a certified survey map subject to the original conditions of approval. We'll run a new resolution through the Common Council specifically doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
Should this be two motions, one for each item?
Yes, it should be. Thank you very much.
I will move that the Plan Commission rezones, forwards the zoning map amendment to rezone a portion of 3002 to 3020 Meyer Road from A to IL.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
I'll just add subject to the conditions in the staff report to the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments on the motion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. And now agenda item 16, Legistar 80234, looking for a motion. Commissioner Solheim.
I move that the Plan Commission forward the certified survey map to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole. Did you wish to speak to your motion, Commissioner Solheim?
Just briefly, I would encourage the applicant to speak further with planning staff about their questions on the conditions, and if something becomes exceptionally problematic, to consider a resubmittal if necessary.
Thank you. Any further comments or discussion on this motion? Seeing no raised hands, we will come to a vote, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Next, business by members. Is there any business by members? Seeing none, next is Secretary's report. Heather.
Thank you, Chair Zellers. First off, I wanted to remind folks, if you haven't already filled out your annual statement of interest forms, please do so. The Plan Commission has a great track record of getting these completed very quickly. And we're reminding all folks on our boards, committees, and commissions to do this by January 2nd. Next, the Common Council last week did act on the vast majority of items forwarded to them by the Plan Commission. And they elected to refer the comprehensive plan interim update to their next meeting of next Tuesday. And so we'll take that up again next Tuesday. I wanted to mention, notably they did approve the core campus rezoning and also the Brayton lot height map change from 4 to 10 stories. Looking forward, I wanted to first mention our special meeting of December 7th, a few of the agenda items that we have on planned for that evening. One is inviting folks from the sustainability team to basically share with the Plan Commission a draft version of the city's sustainability plan, and to have an interactive opportunity to take a look at that. Next, the West and Northeast area plans are in progress, as many of you know, and hoping to take a healthy amount of our time together to discuss some key questions and just show the Plan Commission where we are with those two area planning processes. And then finally, a shorter agenda item, we want to bring back some language to the Plan Commission to consider with regard to the demolition ordinance, and have been working with Chair Zellers on tightening up some language within that section. And so those three items will be before you on the 7th for an informal in-person meeting, as mentioned earlier. And we'll aim to get materials to you late this week so that you have adequate time to review before next
And
Thursday.
Heather, just one comment on the special area plans. My understanding is we will be looking for any input the commissioners might have on any sticky issues that might be that you might be running into. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
All right. And then on December 11th, at our next regular meeting, we'll take up the neighborhood house redevelopment project at 29 South Mills Street. I think that's the main one I'll mention for that meeting. And then on January 8th, after the new year, the main item on the agenda that evening is the Madison College downtown block redevelopment. And so that includes housing and hotel uses. We may have more items on the January 8th agenda that are coming to a future intake meeting, but that'll probably be the main highlight for that evening. That's all I have for tonight, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Alder Field, seconded by Alder Figueroa Cole, and I will assume unanimous consent unless I see a raised hand to object. Seeing no raised hands, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, and see you on December 11th.